It was a quiet evening, the kind of night when life felt simple and predictable. The streets were almost empty, with only a few people heading home after a long day. Among them was a single dad, walking back from work. His mind was heavy with thoughts about bills, his daughter's school projects, and how he would manage the week ahead. To him, it was just another ordinary night until everything changed in an instant. As he passed by a small convenience store, a sharp sound broke the stillness of the evening. He froze. It wasn't just noise, it was shouting, followed by the unmistakable sound of a child crying. His eyes darted toward the source, and what he saw made his heart stop. A little girl, no older than 7 or 8, was standing helplessly in the middle of the street, her small hands trembling. A man, his face masked with desperation and rage, was pointing a gun at someone nearby. The chaos had spilled into the open, and in the middle of it all, the child was trapped, terrified and defenseless. The single dad's instincts kicked in. He had no connection to this child, no reason to get involved, but something deep inside him refused to let him walk away. He thought of his own daughter waiting at home, safe and sound, and the idea of another little girl being harmed tore through him like fire. He looked around. People were frozen in shock, some hiding behind parked cars, others too scared to move. No one was stepping forward. Time felt like it slowed, every second stretching endlessly, and in that silence, he made his choice. His heart pounded as he stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the trembling child. Fear whispered in his mind, telling him to stop, but his love as a father roared louder. He wasn't thinking about himself anymore, he was thinking about the little girl's life. This was the moment that would define everything. He didn't know it yet, but by stepping forward, he was about to change not only the little girl's life, but his own forever. The following week, Daniel reluctantly accepted Ariana's offer to work as a private advisor. At first, he told himself it was temporary, just a chance to earn enough to give Lily a better life. But with each passing day, he found himself drawn deeper into Ariana's world. For Ariana, having Daniel around was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Her board members were polished, rehearsed, and always calculating their own gain. Daniel was different, unpolished but sharp, blunt yet honest, a man who spoke from truth rather than ambition. One evening, after a long meeting, Ariana invited Daniel to dinner. They sat at a quiet corner table in her private dining hall, the city lights shimmering behind glass walls. Daniel looked uncomfortable at first, and used to crystal glasses and golden cutlery. "Relax," Ariana said with a small smile. "It's just food. Same as anywhere else." Daniel chuckled. "Maybe. But in my world, dinner is usually macaroni and cheese with my daughter." Ariana's expression softened. "Tell me about her." That was when his eyes lit up. He spoke of Lily with a warmth Ariana had never seen in a man before, the way she loved painting, how she always insisted on saying goodnight with a bedtime story, how he tried to make up for everything she had lost when her mother passed. For the first time, Ariana saw beyond the strong, serious father. She saw a man who lived for love, not money. And something in her chest shifted. Over the next few days, Ariana found excuses to spend more time with him, inviting him to strategy meetings, asking for his opinion on matters beyond numbers, and sometimes just enjoying the silence of his company. One afternoon, as she watched him sketching notes on a whiteboard, she caught herself smiling. He didn't belong in her world, and yet, she felt more at peace around him than she ever had among billionaires. Daniel noticed too. Though he tried to keep things professional, he couldn't ignore the quiet pull he felt toward her. Ariana Steele, the woman everyone admired but no one truly understood, trusted him. That trust grew into long conversations, quiet laughter, and moments that felt like secrets shared only between them. But Daniel reminded himself of reality. He was just a single father trying to survive. She was a woman with an empire, someone far beyond his reach. Still, the bond was undeniable. An invisible thread tied their hearts closer with every passing day. Neither of them admitted it, but both knew something deeper was forming. And destiny was waiting to test just how strong that bond could become. The street fell into stunned silence. The sharp echo of the gunshot still rang in the air, but for a brief moment, no one moved. The single dad staggered, clutching the little girl tightly against his chest. His knees buckled, and with a shaky breath, he collapsed to the ground. Gasps and screams erupted from the bystanders. Some ducked for cover, others pressed their hands to their mouths in shock. But all eyes were on him, the man who had thrown himself into danger without a second thought. The girl clung to him, trembling and sobbing into his shirt, her tiny hands gripping him desperately. "Don't leave me," she whispered, her voice shaking with fear. He winced as pain spread through his body like fire, but he managed a faint, reassuring smile. "You're safe now," he whispered hoarsely. "I've got you." The gunman, startled by what had just happened, stumbled backward. His hands trembled as the reality of his actions sank in. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder every second, and the flashing lights of police cars appeared at the end of the street. The man panicked and fled into the shadows, leaving behind the chaos he had created. People rushed forward at last. A woman dropped to her knees beside the wounded father, her voice frantic. "Someone call an ambulance! Hurry!" Another man pulled off his jacket and pressed it against the bleeding wound, trying desperately to stop the flow. The single dad's vision blurred, his strength fading with every heartbeat. He could hear the frightened sobs of the little girl, feel her clinging to him as if letting go meant losing her protector forever. Despite the agony, he gently lifted a hand and brushed a tear from her cheek. "Be brave," he whispered, his voice weak but filled with warmth. The girl nodded through her tears, holding his hand tightly as paramedics arrived. They quickly worked to stabilize him, their voices sharp and urgent. "He's losing too much blood, move fast," one shouted. The crowd stepped back, watching in awe and fear as the man who had been a stranger only moments ago now lay fighting for his life. But to the little girl, he was no stranger anymore. He was her hero. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, she cried out, reaching for him. "Don't go. Please." A paramedic gently reassured her, promising he would be taken care of. And as the ambulance doors closed, the crowd knew they had witnessed something extraordinary, an act of courage that would never be forgotten. The ambulance sped away, sirens piercing through the night, carrying the wounded single dad toward the hospital. The crowd slowly began to scatter, shaken but grateful that the little girl had been saved. She remained standing in the street, trembling, her small hands gripping the arm of a kind woman who refused to leave her side. Moments later, a frantic voice broke through the noise. "Emma! Where's my daughter?" A woman came running, her face pale with panic, her eyes darting wildly until they landed on the little girl. Relief flooded her features, and she fell to her knees, pulling her child into a desperate embrace. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered over and over, "You're safe, you're safe." The little girl clung tightly to her mother, sobbing. "Mommy, he saved me." The mother froze, her tear-filled eyes searching her daughter's face. "Who, sweetheart?" She pointed shakily toward the empty street where the ambulance had just been. "The man, he hugged me, he took the bullet so I wouldn't get hurt." Her words broke into sobs again. The mother's heart clenched. She looked around at the bystanders, her voice unsteady. "Who was he? Where is he now?" An older man stepped forward, shaking his head in awe. "He was just passing by. A single father. He didn't even hesitate, he shielded your little girl with his own life. The ambulance just took him to St. Mary's Hospital." The mother's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. A stranger, someone she had never met, had nearly given his life for her child. Gratitude, guilt, and disbelief swirled within her all at once. "I need to see him," she whispered, almost to herself. The kind woman who had held Emma's hand gently touched the mother's arm. "He's in bad shape, but he saved her. He's a hero." The mother hugged her daughter tighter, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't even name. She pictured the man lying in the back of the ambulance, bleeding, fighting for his life, all because he refused to let harm touch a little girl he didn't even know. Her daughter's words echoed again, "He saved me." In that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. If that man survived, she would find a way to repay his courage, his sacrifice. She owed him not just thanks, but something far greater. And so, with her child safe in her arms, she rose to her feet, determination replacing the fear in her eyes. Their lives, and his, had become forever connected. What began as tragedy was now the start of something life-changing. The hospital room was quiet, the only sounds the steady beep of machines and the soft hum of fluorescent lights. The single dad lay pale against the white sheets, his body weak but alive. The bullet had missed his heart by inches, and though the doctors warned his recovery would be long, he had survived. For 2 days, he drifted in and out of consciousness, never fully aware of the world around him. But on the 3rd day, as sunlight streamed gently through the window, he stirred. His eyes opened slowly, and the first thing he saw was a pair of small hands holding his. "Hi," a little voice whispered. He turned his head slightly, wincing at the pain, and saw her, the little girl he had risked everything to save. She was smiling through tears, her eyes full of gratitude. Beside her stood her mother, her face soft with emotion. "You're awake," the woman said, her voice trembling. "We've been waiting to thank you." The single dad tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "Is she okay?" he managed to ask. The mother nodded, pulling her daughter close. "Because of you, she's safe. You didn't even know her, and yet you..." Her voice broke, and she covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. He offered a faint smile, his strength fading but his heart full. "She reminded me of my own little girl. I couldn't just stand there." The room grew heavy with silence, not of sorrow, but of deep, unspoken understanding. The mother stepped closer, her eyes locking with his. "You gave us more than safety. You gave us hope. I'll never be able to repay what you've done." The little girl climbed onto the chair beside him, still holding his hand tightly. "You're my hero," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "I'll never forget you." Something inside him shifted. He had stepped into danger for a stranger, but in doing so, he had found something he hadn't realized he needed: connection, purpose, and a bond that went beyond blood. As days turned into weeks, visits became routine. The girl would bring him drawings, and her mother often sat quietly, talking with him about life, about family, about second chances. What began with tragedy was slowly transforming into something beautiful. Their lives had collided by fate, sealed by a moment of courage and sacrifice. And though none of them could explain it, they all felt it deep within. Their paths were meant to cross. Sometimes, the greatest families aren't the ones we are born into, but the ones we choose in the moments that matter most.